Federal immigration agents shoot 2 people in Portland, Oregon. So there's more of this. According to the New York Times, the driver of the vehicle that federal officials fired into drove off after the shooting. Local officials said, and the victims were found by the police more than 2 miles away with gunshot wounds. Emergency medical technicians who rushed the victims to the hospitals described both as Spanish speakers in conversations captured by emergency radio broadcasts. The woman had a gunshot wound to the chest, and the EMT told a dispatcher the man was described as having 2 gunshot wounds. Let's take a look at the video.
Overnight protest after another shooting incident involving federal agents.
We have a male who was shot twice in the arm, a female who was shot in the chest.
In Portland, Oregon, 2 people shot by a Border Patrol agent. Police say the man and woman were both hospitalized, their conditions unknown. The Department of Homeland Security saying agents stopped a vehicle carrying 2 people affiliated with the violent Tren de Aragua gang. DHS saying the passenger is an illegal Venezuelan immigrant involved with a recent shooting in Portland. DHS saying the driver weaponized his vehicle and attempted to run over agents when they identified themselves, adding an agent fearing for his life and safety fired defensive shots. Local police saying they can't verify those claims since they responded after the vehicle had left the scene.
On our end, we do not know the facts of this case.
Portland's mayor demanding ICE halt operations pending an investigation.
We know what the federal government says happened here. There was a time when we could take them at their word. That time is long past.
Yeah, that is a sad reality right there as well. McLaughlin said in a statement that U.S. Border Patrol agents were conducting a targeted vehicle stop and that an agent fired a shot after the driver tried to run them over. McLaughlin described the agent's target as an undocumented immigrant and member of Tren de Aragua, a gang with roots in a Venezuelan prison that has been a frequent target of President Trump. She provided no immediate evidence that the person who was targeted was affiliated with the gang. At the news conference Thursday, several officials sharply criticized the presence of federal officials in the city and demanded that they leave. Casey Gemma, the majority leader of the Oregon State Senate, said that the shooting occurred near his home and that he was outraged. Addressing federal immigration officials directly, he said, "We do not need you. You are not welcome. You need to get the hell out of our community." On Thursday evening, hundreds gathered at an immigration and customs enforcement building in Portland to protest the crackdown, chanting slogans including "No justice, no peace." Just before 9 p.m. local time, the police arrived and began moving protesters out of the area. The Portland Police Bureau said that its officers arrested 6 people there on charges of disorderly conduct. Despite their criticism of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, local leaders urged calm, particularly in the wake of the already charged national environment following the fatal shooting of a woman by an immigration and customs enforcement officer in Minneapolis on Wednesday. Mayor Keith Wilson said the incident was another sign that federal immigration efforts were out of control. He called on the Trump administration to end enforcement operations in Portland. And let me just say, before I go to Tehran for a comment as well, we on the left, I believe, need to also get rid of this image that we are soft on crime, that we don't care about stopping gang activity, because these things also lead to overcorrections. And of course, the federal government should not be sending in forces against the wishes of the cities and states that should have jurisdiction over their own areas. But we need to stop gang violence. We need to stop crime coming from people that are malintended and are trying to sow chaos in our streets. And if we can be stronger on that, then we can not allow for environments where those moments and those conditions can be taken advantage of and used to terrorize innocent people. I think we've been very soft on that in the past, and we need to change that, and we need to not just be always reflexively on the side of being against law enforcement in general, against their activities. I think we need to support law enforcement as a whole. I think, looking back on those times, defunding the police, a terrible idea, the wrong message, and completely led to the conditions that allowed it to be manipulated by those in power now, saying that those on the left want chaos and craziness in the streets. At the same time, none of that excuses the behavior of lawless enforcement officials, lawless forces that are going into the streets and acting like some sort of rogue masked force that gets to pull their own kind of justice in the streets without going through our proper channels and without the authority to do so. It's a very scary time. Tehran, your thoughts?
Well, it's very interesting to me, Ben Gleib, that the party of small government is the one that's sending in the most troops and overriding state rights constantly. It's actually the foundation and premise of the Republican Party. Smaller federal government, more state rights. That is their position on almost everything. In fact, it was specifically their position on abortion. It's why the abortion case Roe v. Wade was appealed and overturned, was because it was kicked back to the states. And yet we see time and time again, federal troops are being sent into states against the city and states' wishes. That is the opposite of small government. That is the hypocrisy of what we keep seeing. It's only a rule as long as it doesn't go against my wishes. Do as I say, not as I do. These are the things that we're seeing from this current administration. And by the way, this is not about being Republican or Democrat. This is simply about being American. We have a constitution and separations for a reason. We also have branches that are separated for a reason. And yet we constantly see an overlap. Once again, you will hear this term a lot over the next 4 years, and hopefully not again. Slippery slope. This is how the avalanche starts.
Yeah, that is true. And it's a great point. It's amazing how fast the right wing in this country abandons the very premise of the Republican Party. They wanted a government so small you can drown it in the bathtub, and it just bloats with budgets bigger than ever because Trump says so. It bloats with, they wanted America first, and it bloats with taking over countries without congressional approval because Trump wants to do it, because he wants to grab the oil and keep it for the richest among us and enrich the oil companies even more so, and take the minerals from a country that certainly wasn't led by a good guy, but it's not our business to go in there and depose that leader. And, the left, who has always been the advocate for larger government and more control on the federal level, is the side that the other side would always argue that the left wanted somehow the country taken over by the government. Granted, it would be a very soft tyranny. It would be a tyranny that would give people a lot of extra rights and safety nets, but maybe without the control of individual states. But out the window, the moment that Trump and his corrupt administration say, let's go ahead and just throw it all out the window and take control of power. And Trump talking the other day about how he literally has no check on his power whatsoever and can do whatever he wants. And it's his own morality only that can stop him and nothing else. And nobody has an issue with it. The only little glimmer of hope I can see is that there are even finally now some Republicans starting to rebuke this administration. Some Republicans defected from the party line and have voted to extend the Obamacare healthcare subsidies. Some have defected from the party line in an apparent rebuke to Trump to agree to hang a plaque in the Capitol building honoring the police that protected the Capitol on January 6th. There is starting to be a few speaking out against this horrible shooting. But we need not just some. We need, when things are obvious, for people to speak out about obvious things against the bad actors that are obviously lying. If we lose the ability in this time of AI and this post-truth era to also speak out against obvious lies being told by human beings in the moment, then we literally have created the conditions for complete chaos, and we don't have a country where we can make heads or tails of it anymore. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to simply say it becomes very scary when these lines are blurred, but we also need to be careful of the words we use. Like, for example, Ben Gleib, you're very smart. You know these things. Why is this left and that's right? Why is that the distinction? What are we lefting and righting? Where is that middle that we're looking for? Also, the word left has become synonymous with woke, which has become synonymous with all the chaos and lawlessness that you were talking about in the beginning. They utilize these words in order to hurt us. Just remember that this isn't about a political party line. I wish politicians cared more about America and less about being Republican and Democrat and their party winning. That would be the best. How about we just take the best idea from whoever puts it out? How about we all care about having a common good America, civil society, things like that, making America the best it can be. The United States of America is the best country on the planet. It just constantly fails when it comes to the idea of the United States of America. That's when it becomes the worst of what it should be, what it could be, and what it would be if people were actually united and not simply divided.
100%. Very well said. I've been saying that same message for a long time. Even in my stand-up, I talk about it in my last special about how they are just dividing us to be able to keep more money for themselves up on the top. They make it seem like we are somehow divided left versus right. Nobody lives on a left. Nobody lives on a right. There are no sides. They even color code us red and blue, which interestingly is the exact colors of Bloods and Crips, and are trying to create that sort of gang warfare mentality among the people. And I don't have a color that I identify with. I don't stand to the certain side of any issue. I've always said one of the great poisons in our country, of course, in addition to the horrible influence of unchecked money in our politics, is political parties themselves. We should vote on issue by issue. We shouldn't be monoliths that have to feel like we identify on one thing and feel like we can't speak out when there's a particular issue that's different that happens to be on the other side. And I think that's the new way that we're all going to realize is the only way to move forward as a united country is to be able to buck party identities and say, on this one, this makes sense. On this one, that makes sense. Use our own brains instead of being fed party lines by corrupt national party organizations that don't have our best interests in mind, but instead keeping all the power for themselves.